The adulteration of food had been practiced in Britain since before the Middle Ages, but from 1800, with increasing urbanization and the rise in shop-purchased food, adulterants became a growing problem. 3. Cost was the reason adulterants were used. Sugar, for example, cost 6.5d per pound. The adulterant cost 0.5d per pound. 4b. The adulteration fell into 3 categories. Firstly were harmless additions, such as chicory in coffee, adding flour to mustard and watering down milk. More serious were the addition of indigestible ingredients, including introducing alum, gypsum or chalk into white bread or tree or shrub leaves into tea leaves. Finally, dangerous additions to foods included salts of copper and red lead glaze used as colorants, mercury salts added to cheese, and the use of arsenic, sulfuric acid and nitric acid. 6. The chemist Arthur Hill Hassall was prominent in the field of food analysis as an analytical microscopist who established levels of adulteration. 7. Between 1850 and 1856, he examined 3,000 samples of food and found 65% of them contained adulterants. 8. Those involved in adulterating foodstuff used nicknames to hide the practice. These included Daff, Duck, Duff, Darby, Multum, Flash, and Stuff. 9-1, one local name used in Bradford, an industrial town in the West Riding of Yorkshire, was Daft. 1. The Victorian era, arsenic was an ingredient in several household products, including medicines for external and internal use, candles, wallpaper, soft furnishings, and colorants for foods. 10. It was also used as a poison for murder. So many people died of arsenic poisoning, both deliberate and accidental, that legislation in the form of the Arsenic Act 1851 was introduced. It was the first piece of UK legislation to attempt to control the sale of a poisonous substance. 11. It stated that arsenic should only be sold to adults, the sale recorded in a book, signed by both seller and buyer, and that there should be a witness to the sale if the buyer was unknown to the seller. Any arsenic not to be used for medicinal purposes was to be colored with soot or indigo to differentiate it from other white powders on sale. 1. There was no restriction on who could sell arsenic. No license was required, and any trader was able to sell it as long as they kept a record of the sale. 1. Although the act controlled the method of sale, it did not bring an end to arsenic-related problems or the widespread use of arsenic in household goods. In 1860, an article in The Lancet asked, how to convict of arsenical poisoning when ladies use arsenical cosmetics, when confectioners sell arsenical sweetmeats, when paper hangers clothe our walls with arsenical hangings and impregnate all the air with fine arsenical dust. Above all, when chemists sell arsenic for a tooth powder and label it mercury. 13. Also known as white arsenic, is an industrially produced inorganic compound with the formula as 2O3. It is white and is commonly found in either powdered or crystal form, the latter resembling sugar or sand. It is used as a wood preservative and a pesticide. 1617. As a solid it is tasteless, but when in solution, it is described as very faint, at first sweetish, afterward very slightly metallic. 18. William Hardacre, known to locals as Humbug Billy, sold sweets from a stall in the Green Market in central Bradford. Hardacre purchased his confectionery from Joseph Neal, who made the sweets in Stone Street a few hundred yards to the north. 1920. The sweets were peppermint lozenges, made by mixing peppermint oil into a base of sugar, water, and gum, which was made into a paste, then dried on boards before being cut into lozenge shapes. As the sugar was relatively expensive, Neal would substitute some of the sugar with powdered gypsum. He later justified his actions by saying, "Where I use a pound of it, there are people who will use a ton of it." 2. On the Sunday morning, the local police were informed of the deaths of a man named Elijah Wright and 2 boys, aged 9 and 14, the sons of John Scott. It was thought that the cause of the deaths was cholera, 2930. The misdiagnosis of cholera instead of arsenic poisoning was a common mistake, as the symptoms for both vomiting, abdominal pain, and diarrhea were similar, and England was affected by an ongoing cholera pandemic. 3132. When more deaths were reported during the course of Sunday, Police Constable Campbell was sent to investigate. He made the connection between the sweets and the deaths and visited Hardacre, seizing the remaining stock, which was just under 36 pounds, 16 kilograms. Campbell then went to Neil's premises and seized 6 ounces, 170 grams of fragments of the sweets. A detective, William Burniston, went to Shipley with Neil to visit Hodgson, the druggist. When Neil indicated the cask from which the powder had been dispensed, Hodgson immediately identified it as containing arsenic. Burniston arrested Goddard, the assistant, 33 Bell, sitting in three-quarter pose John Henry Bell, one of the local doctors who treated those poisoned the chief constable, William Leverett, had been kept abreast of developments and deployed men to local inns and alehouses to spread warnings about the lozenges. He sent out bellmen to announce the warnings across the town, and at 11 p.m., he had warning notices printed up and posted overnight for people to see in the morning. 34. A local doctor, John Henry Bell, hypothesized the poisonings of his patients were caused by arsenic. He gave the lozenges from one patient to an analytical chemist who confirmed his theory. Bell treated 60 patients for the poisoning, 3536 by midday on the Monday, 1 November. The number of dead had risen to 12, with 78 people seriously ill. 27 police visited Neil for a second time and searched his premises more thoroughly, finding hundreds of fragments still on the drying boards used when preparing the lozenges. Neil's wife also admitted that she had found other fragments and thrown them onto the fire. She had also been to their own sweet shop and brought back some bags of mixed sweets that contained lozenges or lozenge fragments. While the police were there, Neil ran off and was pursued. He was found sitting in his kitchen at home. 37 Goddard was brought in front of the magistrates on the Monday. He was remanded in custody. An inquest was opened the following day. The magistrates also met and decided that Hodgson should also be arrested and remanded. 3839. On Wednesday, the magistrates also decided that Neil should also be arrested, although he was released on bail. They heard from an analytical chemist, Felix Remington, who estimated that each sweet contained 9 grains, 580 mg, of arsenic. He added that 4.5 grains were sufficient to kill an adult male. Remington later made an analysis of the lozenges which showed each contained between 11 and 16 grains, 710 and 1040 mg. 3940. By the end of Wednesday, 15 people had been reported dead, 11 of whom were children. 13 more were listed as dangerously ill, and another 150 were ill but not in danger. 41. The magistrates met again on the Friday and determined that the 3 men in custody should be sent to the next York Assizes for trial on a charge of manslaughter by negligence. Bail for Hodgson and Neil was set at £200. That for Goddard was set at £100. The number of dead had risen to 17, with 196 people ill, 42 F. Eventually up to 21 people died and over 200 were sick. Figures on the number of deaths vary, with either 21 or 21 people dead. 2. The Assizes opened on 9 December 1858. The judge was Mr. Baron Warren. In his opening remarks, he said that there was no case for Neil to answer as he was not present when the arsenic was purchased or when the lozenges were made, and dismissed the case against him. Goddard, Warren said, was only following the instructions of his master and so also had no case to answer. His case was also dismissed. Warren said the case against Hodgson should stand and that he would be tried later in the month. 4344 Hodgson's trial opened on 21 December 1858 for the manslaughter of Elizabeth Mary Midgley, a 7-year-old girl. If he was found guilty of the charge, others would follow. After hearing some of the evidence, the judge stopped the proceedings and said there was no case for Hodgson to answer. He instructed the jury to record a verdict of not guilty, which they did. I hope you liked this video. Do like, share, subscribe, follow on social media. Link is in description.